Right, so thanks to the people at DDA, we've got Smoke. It's a new Apple original TV series that will be hitting I think it's the 27th, right? On the 27th of June, the first two episodes will arrive. Then it will screen every week until the 15th of August, right? So it's 9 episodes in total. Today we're just looking at, we looked at episode 1 and 2 as they're the launch episodes. You feel me? So, this is actually based on a true story. I didn't know that coming in, didn't know that at all. And also, it's, this true story was adapted for a podcast called Firebug, right? The series has been created by Dennis Lehane. And it is produced by Molly Miller and David Dilberto. Executive producers: Lehane, Joe Chappelle, Jane Bartlemy, Kari Skogland, Mark Smerling, Taron Egerton, Carrie Amphilis, Bradley Thomas, Dan Friedkin, and Richard Pelpler. Cinematography was Sam McCurdy and Francis Daganiz. Plummy Tucker, Rob Bonds, John Pettiga, and Michael Costello, right, edit the piece. So episode 1, right, which is just titled Pilot, is directed by Kari Skogland, written by Dennis Lehane, right? The gist of episode 1, hold on, I had that. Okay, so tension rises as the search for suspects begins. Michelle Calderone pumps the brakes on her personal life. Dave Gudsen gets creative. Right, so episode 2, You're Happy Makes Me Sad, is directed by Joe Chappelle, written by Dennis Lehane and Adriane McCray. So that episode seemingly stalled. Gudsen and Calderone consider a new lead. Chaos ensues on a side mission. Freddie Fasano rethinks his future. Right, so that's the episode 1 and 2. And yeah, I don't know what to think so far, to be honest with you, right? Like, it's filmed well, we've got good cinematography, all of that jazz works. It's got that gritty kind of feel to it. Story-wise, right, because they're looking for these 2 serial arsonists that have been, plaguing the city. And there's no leads, right? There's no leads. So, to try and get to the bottom of things, Dave Gudsen gets a new partner, Michelle Calderone, right? And of course, right, Dave doesn't necessarily want a partner. We got those familiar beats that we always see in these kind of situations, right? The lone cop doesn't want a partner. So we get all of that, which, fine. Let's just get through this, right? We keep on getting these flashbacks, right? Dave is having nightmares. Michelle has there's a few things going on with Michelle, right? So we have all of that going through episode 1. And then we get this other kind of sub-story with Freddie Fasano, right? Who works in a chicken shop, right? Coops, fried chicken, all of that. So we have these different story plots going on. And at first, right, in episode 1, it seems like they're pointing the direction of one of our arsonists in a certain direction. And it does, it feels too early to be revealing a suspect, right? Not even a suspect, the known person of a thing. So you think to yourself, that this has got to be a red herring because it's too obvious, right? Too obvious. And also it doesn't match a description we get a bit later. So there is that. Now, it's, I don't know, right? We're building our characters, right? We're getting a little insight into them. There does seem to be the relationships and everything that are, getting embedded, which is fine. But the story does feel a little convoluted at this point, right? We're getting pulled all over the place. These different things are coming up. More backstory, and even some of the backstory, especially with Michelle, is kind of boring and predictable, like affairs with bosses, that kind of thing. And it's just a bit like, can we do something new here? Now, it is based on a true story. So when you're I didn't know that coming in. So if all of this actually did happen, fine. Right? If, they're adding a little color to it, as they say, right? Embellishing certain parts to, give us a story, then you could do something else, right? You could do something else. Now, when we get into episode 2 goes a little crazy, right? Because firstly, we have someone doing something which is just, when you're meant to be seasoned in what you do, right? To approach this thing the way this character approaches it is pretty reckless and nuts. And you can kind of understand if there's a rush, right? When everyone's rushing around, you're like, what do I do? Okay. And you're forced into a situation. Then you think, fine. But no, this is methodical, right? So you're just being, why would they, when they understand the scrutiny on them anyway, why would they approach this thing in this manner with no sort of backup, right? No sort of alibi. It was a bit nutty, right? And obviously, right? So then after the fact, we see, the scramble and all of this, but it's just that's all well and good, but would they really approach it in that manner? Right? From what little we know on this character so far, right? So we have that. We also have more of the Freddy story, right? Which is, it's fine. It's interesting. I don't want to say it's interesting. It's not really at this point, but you do think it could still be trying to lead us into a certain mindset, right? View on a situation. So there is that. Now, what's really kind of a bit bonkers is Dave's story. Because what we get in the first episode is a complete 180 to then what we see in the second episode. Right? You're just, because we have this conversation with his boss. Right? He's just like, oh, this is how I feel. Right? This is what home life is. And you're just like, okay. Now, we didn't see that in episode 1. Right? We didn't see that at all in episode 1. So it's just, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's really weird. And also, again, we are shown some stuff that is very much kind of going, this is someone, right? And you're just like, oh, I don't know, because the episode in its entirety does then make you kind of question things and go, well, what they've now shown us does speak to this, right? It's a clear indicator on the possibility, which is fine. But remember, this is 9 episodes. So kind of, look, now, what we see could be true. And then what we get in our next 7 episodes is this intriguing cat and mouse, like thriller, drama. That could happen. But it does feel real early to kind of draw the line in the sand and say, these are our targets, right? These are the people we are after. These are the criminals, but how do we get to them? You know, it feels a little early to do that. But, right, the big thing is, because it feels a little too early, it feels like we could be, you know, be given a lot of smoke and mirrors here. Right? You know, because all they have to do is show us like something from a different angle, and this different angle shows us this thing that was actually happening, and then you're like, oh, I see what they did there. So it might be all of that, right? It might be all of that. Now, it's a great cast, right? It's a great creative team. So I feel there is the benefit of the doubt in some ways, that you're like, okay, let me possibly give it that, right? Let me possibly give it that, but you're still not sure. You know, supporting, we've got Rafe Spall as Stephen Burke. We've got Hannah Emily Anderson as Ashley Gudsen, Dave's wife. Emmett, right? Ashley's son from a previous relationship is played by Luke Rossler. We got Ezra Espirito, played by John Leguizamo. Actually, I'm not sure he's come into it yet. Harry Engelhardt is played by Greg Kinnear. Benji is played by Mishka Furbold. Right? Lee, played by Dakota Dolby. Danny Alvarado is played by Grace. Right, no, Danny Alvarado plays a young Renata, right, in the thing. Adina Potter plays Brenda Capos. So she's in she's kind of in Freddie's story. Like a young version of Michelle is played by Ayana Mirion. Reba Daniels played by Erin Carpluk. Rose is played by Nozofi McLean. Art Stanton is played by David James Lewis. So, yeah, they're our support. But, yeah, I'm kind of on the fence with this because it does feel very messy at this moment in time. We've had some interesting things, right? Had some interesting things. But, yeah, it does feel like the story's all over the place a little bit. But it's kind of early days. And because we have these glaring points, right? These things where they're going, these are our people. It kind of makes you think they're trying to lead us. So I'm gonna go and watch more because it just feels a bit too simple, right? A bit too easy. And I kind of have a sense that it's not that, right? It's not that. So I think there's going to be people that bail out after these first two, right? And I can understand why. But, yeah, I'm going to stick to it. I mean, DDA sent it to me. So I've got a kind of, I feel I should finish the series, right? So I'm going to finish and then I will give you my overall opinions just before the last episode drops. But, yeah, at this present moment, Smoke, it's a bit of a wisp, right? We ain't got no full-fledged fire going on, right? You know what I mean? So we'll see. We'll see how they stoke it and build it. And hopefully we get blazing by episode 9, right? But yeah, we'll keep you posted. People, let me know how you have found things once you watched the first two.